Ready? Studio Display 2026, Studio Display XDR, and the old Studio Display. We've got quite a bit to talk about. The original Studio Display came out in 2022. I made loads of videos about it. I've used it ever since. It's my favorite monitor ever. And I think, and I know this isn't always a popular opinion, I think it's the best monitor you can get for your Mac. Yes, I know it's expensive, and on paper, there are other versions of other monitors which seem to have better specs, but none of them are built as well as this. And I still think this has the best 5K panel on the market for Apple users. We did have to wait 4 years though for an update to this. That's fine. We don't expect a new Studio Display every year like the iPhone. However, we have two now. So we have the updated version of that, which is that one there. And then we have the XDR, which is a completely new version, and it's kind of replaced something else, which I'll explain in a second. However, I think you're watching this video for one of a few reasons. One of them might just be because you enjoy watching videos about this stuff, or you might be thinking about buying one of these or upgrading from that one down there. So I've noted down the questions that you might have. What are the differences between these two? That's the big one. Which one is for you? That's the even bigger one. And if you are thinking about coming from, they are heavy, from this to one of these, which one should you go for? By the way, guys, if you haven't subscribed to my newsletter yet, go and check it out. It comes out every week. It's completely free. You can unsubscribe at any time. It features exclusive content you don't see on this channel and first access to giveaways and all sorts of stuff. The link is down below. Right. Let's get into these. Okay, there are so many numbers and letters involved in monitor comparisons. I don't want to send you to sleep. I'll fall asleep as well. So instead of doing the whole let's reel them off thing, let's instead give you a table, which I've put together here. On the screen, you can screenshot it, you can save it and use it in future. Those are the important numbers and letters that you need to be aware of between these two monitors, but there's a lot more to it than that. I think very quickly, let's talk about the new choice that you have. So you have the choice between the regular Studio Display, that one there, and the Studio Display XDR. This is new. We used to have the Studio Display and the Pro Display XDR. The latter was very expensive for a very high-end market, and most people didn't need it. Now, these are much closer, and you can't buy the Pro Display XDR anymore. It's already confusing, isn't it? The difference between these two monitors, the price difference, is still fairly significant. So I'll talk in UK pounds, but we'll put the US pricing down here as well. So the standard Studio Display is £1,499 starting price. The XDR version jumps to £2,999. £3,000 basically. So there's a big difference between the two. And there's a ton of similarities. I've made a list of the things that are the same between these two monitors, and there's a lot of stuff. So starting with the design, it's identical apart from two things. The XDR display has extra vents on the top of it, across that top edge, and it has the tilt and height adjustable stand as standard, whereas that is an option for the regular Studio Display. Apart from that, they look identical, and they look identical to the 2022 edition. Apple hasn't really changed anything. That's not a problem for me because it's a superb monitor. It's so well built, as I mentioned earlier, and it stands up to the test of time. So I'm glad they've kept it as it is. It didn't need to go thinner or anything like that at all. They have the same sized screen as well, 27 inches, the same resolution, 5K, the same PPI, which is 218 PPI. So it's exactly the same in terms of the size, the resolution, and the density of those pixels. They have the same speaker system, they have the same Thunderbolt 5 connectivity on the back, which is new and means you can daisy chain multiple versions of these monitors together. That's fantastic. They also both have the new 12 megapixel center stage camera. I'll get to that later. What are the differences? Let's start with the regular Studio Display, the 2026 edition. The big difference here between that and this is the screen, actually. Even though it has the same 5K resolution and PPI and all that stuff and the same size, it's a significantly different panel. It's an LED panel, it has 600 nits of peak brightness, and it has a maximum 60 Hz refresh rate. There's no ProMotion built into it. The differences between it and the one it's replaced, the old one that's down there that I've been using for the last 4 years, it has an A19 chip in it, which is interesting. interesting because could it run macOS? I won't go down that rabbit hole, but it's got a newer chip. It's got the 12 megapixel center stage camera. This is the difference between that and the original version. That was a big complaint from myself, from lots of other people when the original Studio Display came out. It just wasn't good enough at all. Apple has fixed that. It's got the center stage thing where you move around and it tracks you and all that sort of stuff. The speakers have been upgraded as well. The Thunderbolt 5 is the new connectivity, and that means you can daisy chain up to 4 of these. So you can run a MacBook into one and then take a Thunderbolt cable, run it from one of the other Thunderbolt 5 connections on the back to another Studio Display, and then do the same thing again to another one. You get the idea. That's what you get for your £1,499. And for most people, that is absolutely fine. The display quality is as good as it was before. I think it's pretty much the same panel. Who knows? It doesn't matter. It's beautiful. And for most people, if you've got that cash to spend and you want the all-in-one Apple thing going on and you want something that will last a very long time, it's the one to go for. Is it worth upgrading from the original Studio Display? Not really, not unless you want to add a second one, or if your original one is breaking. I can't imagine that's the case, but if that is the case, that is a reason to get the new one. But apart from that, not really. Which brings me to the XDR. Okay, so although they look identical, the Studio Display XDR is a different beast, and the reason it's different is because of the panel. So okay, it has the same resolution and the same screen size, all that stuff, but it's mini LED. So we have LED, mini LED. That means, I will have to quote some numbers, I'm afraid. It means it has a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, which means much deeper blacks. If you've got, a very high contrast scene, for instance, it looks better on on the Studio Display XDR compared to the Studio Display. It has less blooming, so if you have, for instance, white text on a black background, that kind of halo effect that you get around text on certain monitors, you're less likely to get that on the Studio Display XDR. It also has 2,000 nits of peak brightness for HDR content, so 600 nits of peak brightness, 2,000 nits, and that is one of the biggest differences. If you're watching HDR content on either of these monitors, you can immediately spot the difference on the XDR. It's just brighter, it's more vibrant, it looks utterly fantastic. The same goes if you're looking at photos that you've taken with your iPhone in HDR, or any camera, or whatever it might be that you've taken the photo with that has done an HDR image for you. It looks much better on the XDR. Oh, and ProMotion. We have the variable 120 Hz refresh rate display on the XDR, 60 Hz, 120 Hz, double the refresh rate. I don't think that's the biggest difference between these two. I think it's one of those things that you don't see that regularly. You can see it occasionally when you're moving your windows around the screen on that one versus that one, but you're going to spot the brightness more for HDR content, and I think the biggest difference is just the image clarity and just the depth of the image between the two. But if you want ProMotion, you have to get that one. Oh, and the port situation is slightly different. So they both have 4 Thunderbolt 5 ports, but the Studio Display XDR can charge at 140 watts, which means it can fast charge a 16-inch MacBook Pro. That one can't. It can only charge it at 96 watts. Is that a big deal? Well, it might be. Because remember, the brilliant thing about these displays is that you can just plug a MacBook in and it will charge the MacBook as well as deliver the image to the monitor. And if you need to juice up your very expensive, very big 16-inch MacBook Pro very quickly, you need to get that one. Anything else? Yeah, the tilt and height adjustable stand, as mentioned, is standard on this one. So you can do that. And that without spending more. No, you do spend more money, don't you? Because it's more expensive. You get the point. Ooh, there is something else. The XDR has a DICOM, D-I-C-O-M reference mode, which I have no idea what this means, but if you're in the medical industry, it will mean something. If you view X-rays or MRI scans on your monitor, the Studio Display XDR has a mode built into it that makes it applicable for that kind of use. I can't comment any more on that, and I think it is going through a review process at the moment, but it's on the way. So again, if that is your industry, you need to get that. Are you still confused? If so, keep watching. There are two things that I want to cover again very quickly. The first one is the decision between these two monitors. Do you go for the Studio Display or the Studio Display XDR? Firstly, you may fall into a bracket that means you have to get the XDR. So you might need the HDR performance, you might need that decom thing for medical work, you might need ProMotion for whatever reason. If that's the case, that's the one to get. Equally, you may fall into the bracket that just needs the Studio Display. You don't care about the HDR performance, you don't care about ProMotion, the medical thing isn't a thing for you at all, you're not bothered about the height adjustable stand being a cost option. That is the one to go for. The tricky thing is if you sit in the middle and you just don't know. And this is where my job gets quite tricky, but I always come to the same conclusion, which is firstly, I can't tell you which one to buy, obviously. And secondly, it just comes down to budget. There's a very big price difference between these two monitors, which makes it slightly easier. If $3,000 is too much for you, get that. You will not be disappointed by the Studio Display. If you can stretch to the XDR and you don't want any form of buyer's remorse, get it. Because if you're in that position and you go for the cheaper version, you may sit there every day thinking, oh, if only it had 2000 nits of peak brightness or You don't want to be in that position. The second thing to cover is oh no, don't drop it. That's a very good demonstration of how well built these things are. I knocked that onto the table down there and the table has got a mark on it. This hasn't. Well done, Apple. The second thing to cover is if you have the original Studio Display, do you go for one of these? I think, once again, it comes down to your budget, but I think if you can stretch to the XDR and you fancy a second display, get it. That's what I'm doing. These aren't mine, by the way. This is mine. These are going back to Apple because they're review units. But this one's mine, and now I've experienced that with that beautiful nano texture display and just the whole thing of having two Studio Displays. I want one of those. So if you fall into that camp and you have the budget, fantastic. If you don't, it's not worth it. Let's very quickly look at those differences again. A better camera. Okay, that's fairly big news, but is it worth another 1,400, 1,500 quid? Probably not. It has an edge light feature. That's something that I didn't mention earlier, which is a kind of fake ring light that it puts around the screen in dimly lit rooms. So again, linked to that new camera, which might be worth the upgrade. That's up to you to decide. Apart from that, the Thunderbolt 5 stuff is nice, but it's not enough to upgrade. And A19 chip, you don't really notice it because it's just powering the monitor. And the one, what was it? What was in this one? The A13. That was made for this and it works. It's fine. It's not worth the upgrade. But if you can go for the XDR. Guys, I need to put this down because it's very heavy and hopefully not drop it again. I hope that has helped. Please get involved in the comments. Let me know which one of these you're going for and why. I'll get involved as well. And there will be future Studio Display content on the way. So let me know what you want me to do next with these monitors. Oh, it's an exciting time to be an Apple person, isn't it? See you later.